What if the foods your body needs after 60 were not new at all? What if they were the same simple foods your grandparents trusted, the same foods carried through deserts, served beside fires, packed for journeys, poured over wounds, and named on the pages of Scripture long before the modern world forgot them? Most people do not realize this. While today's world keeps chasing complicated diets, expensive powders, and perfect meal plans, the Bible keeps pointing us back to foods that are humble, earthy, and deeply nourishing. Foods from the field, foods from the tree, foods from the garden, foods from the sea. And today, I want to show you 20 sacred Bible foods that may help your body heal naturally after 60. Some support the heart. Some support digestion. Some bring steady energy. Some comfort the body in ways our ancestors understood better than we do. Number 13 was so precious that it was carried as a gift for rulers. Yet most people today walk past it without realizing how much nutrition is hidden inside its small shell. And number 20 is more than food. It was poured over kings, used in worship, placed on wounds, burned in lamps, and treated through Scripture as a sign of blessing, healing, and holy purpose. So stay with me until the end, because the final food may change the way you look at your kitchen forever. Now, let us begin with the first food. The first food is lentils, the birthright bowl. In the book of Genesis, chapter 25, verse 34, Esau sold his birthright for bread and a bowl of lentil stew. Most people remember that story as a warning about impatience, and it is. But pause for a moment and look at the food sitting in that bowl. Lentils were not royal food. They were not placed on golden plates. They were the food of tents, workers, travelers, mothers, fathers, and families who needed strength without waste. A pot of lentils does not look impressive, but it carries a quiet kind of power. Lentils bring plant protein, fiber, minerals, and slow energy. For a body after 60, that matters. You do not always need a heavy meal. Sometimes you need warmth. You need steadiness. You need food that fills you without leaving you tired. And that is where lentils shine. The modern world often sells strength in powders, bars, and expensive containers. Scripture shows us strength simmering in a humble pot. Cook lentils with onions, garlic, herbs, and a little olive oil. Let them soften slowly. Eat them as soup on a quiet evening. A bowl like that says something. God can use humble things to keep a person standing. The second food is barley, the poor man's strength grain. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 8, barley is listed among the foods of the good land. And in the Gospel of John, chapter 6, a boy brings 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish before Jesus feeds the crowd. Barley was not the bread of luxury. It was the grain of ordinary people, rougher than fine wheat, chewier, earthier, the kind of food you can imagine in the hands of a worker at the edge of a field, or a mother stretching a meal for children at sunset. But simple does not mean weak. Barley contains a special kind of fiber, often linked with heart and cholesterol support. It also helps a meal feel steady and satisfying, which can be useful for people trying to eat more wisely after 60. And maybe that is why barley belongs in this story. It reminds us that God often feeds people through what looks plain, not dramatic, not expensive, plain. You can use barley in soup with mushrooms, carrots, onions, and broth. You can cook it until it becomes soft and nutty. It does not shout, it nourishes. And before we go further, one gentle word. This video is for education and encouragement. Always speak with your doctor before changing your diet, treatment, or medication, especially if you have a medical condition. The third food is beans, the builder's food. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 4, verse 9, the prophet is told to take wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and other grains to make bread. And in 2 Samuel, chapter 17, when David and his people are weary in the wilderness, beans appear among the foods brought to strengthen them. That detail is easy to miss. Beans do not sound poetic. Nobody looks at a bowl of beans and thinks, this is sacred. But when people are tired, hungry, and worn down, beans make sense. They are sturdy food, filling food, food that stays with you. Beans bring fiber, plant protein, minerals, and a slow kind of energy that does not feel flashy, but it lasts. After 60, many people discover that the body does not always want more food. It wants better food. Food that helps digestion. Food that keeps hunger calm. Food that supports the heart and keeps the table simple. Beans were forgotten because they became too ordinary, too cheap, too common. But in God's economy, ordinary things often carry hidden mercy. Cook beans slowly with bay leaf, onion, garlic, and a spoon of olive oil. Serve them beside greens or whole grain bread. It is not trendy. It is old. And sometimes old is exactly what the body remembers. The fourth food is whole wheat bread, the daily bread of endurance. When Jesus taught his disciples to pray, he said in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 11, "Give us this day our daily bread," not daily cake, not daily luxury, daily bread. Bread in Scripture is more than food. It is provision. It is the smell of morning. It is the sound of a loaf being broken. It is the reminder that life continues because God supplies what is needed, one day at a time. But the bread of the ancient world was not the soft white bread many people know today. It was heavier, darker, more textured. It carried the grain with it. Whole wheat brings fiber, minerals, and B vitamins that support energy and digestion. For older adults, that difference can matter. A slice of true whole grain bread can feel more satisfying than refined bread that disappears too quickly and leaves the body asking for more. The forgotten lesson is not that bread is bad. The lesson is that bread was changed. The food of endurance became the food of convenience. So choose bread that feels alive with grain. Eat it with lentil soup. Dip it in olive oil. Break it slowly. Daily bread is not only about eating. It is about receiving enough for today. The fifth food is figs, the sweet fruit of restoration. In the book of 2 Kings, chapter 20, verse 7, Isaiah says to take a cake of figs and apply it to King Hezekiah's boil. And in Deuteronomy, chapter 8, figs are named as one of the fruits of the promised land. That is a strange and beautiful combination. A fruit of blessing. A fruit connected with care for a wound. Now, we should not turn that story into a modern medical claim, but we can recognize something ancient people understood well. Figs were valued. They were food, sweetness, and traditional household wisdom wrapped into one soft fruit. A ripe fig has a gentle richness to it. Tiny seeds, deep sweetness, a texture almost like jam made by the sun. Figs bring fiber, potassium, and plant compounds that may support digestion and overall wellness. For someone after 60, they can be a better kind of sweetness, especially when used carefully and not eaten without thought. The world gives people candy, syrup, and desserts that shout. Figs whisper. They say, sweetness does not have to be empty. Try them with plain yogurt, walnuts, or a small piece of whole grain bread, or simmer dried figs with warm spices until your kitchen smells like an old family table. Some fruits do not simply feed the mouth. They comfort the memory. The sixth food is dates, the desert's hidden strength. In the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 6, verse 19, David gives food to the people, including cakes of dates, as part of a joyful celebration. Dates are desert food. That matters. They grow where life looks difficult. Hot land, dry air, long days, places where shade feels like mercy. And yet, the palm tree bears fruit that is sweet, dense, portable, and full of quick energy. For travelers in the ancient world, dates were not a luxury snack. They were practical, A small handful could help carry a person through heat and weariness. After 60, people sometimes fear natural sweetness so much that they forget the difference between fruit from a tree and candy made in a factory. Dates are still sweet, so they should be eaten wisely, especially by anyone watching blood sugar. But they also bring potassium, fiber, and minerals inside that sweetness. That is the difference. A date is not empty. It is sweetness with structure. Eat one or two with nuts. Chop them into oatmeal. Pair them with bitter tea. The spiritual picture is hard to miss. Some of the sweetest fruit in the world grows in dry places. And maybe some of the sweetest grace does too. The seventh food is grapes and raisins, the fruit of the vine. In the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verse 23, the spies sent into the land cut down a cluster of grapes so large it had to be carried on a pole between two men. Imagine that for a moment. A cluster so heavy that one man alone was not enough. That was the image brought back from the promised land. Not a speech, not a map, a cluster of fruit. Grapes in Scripture carry abundance, joy, warning, and blessing. Raisins also appear as food for strength, including in 1 Samuel chapter 30, where food helps revive a weakened man. Grapes and raisins bring natural sugars, plant compounds, and polyphenols. Dark grapes especially are studied for compounds connected with circulation and antioxidant support. But wisdom matters here. A little can nourish. Too much can become excess. That is true of many good things. Grapes were forgotten partly because the fruit of the vine became associated mostly with wine, while the simple fruit itself lost attention. But a handful of grapes, eaten slowly, is still a beautiful food. A small portion of raisins, paired with nuts, can still help with energy. The vine teaches balance. It offers sweetness, but asks for self-control. And after 60, that may be one of the most healing lessons of all. The eighth food is pomegranate, the ruby fruit of the promised land. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 8, the pomegranate is listed among the foods of the good land. It also appears in priestly garments and temple imagery, which tells you something. This fruit was not simply eaten, it was admired. A pomegranate is not a lazy fruit. You cannot just bite into it while walking out the door. You have to open it. You have to slow down. You have to deal with the red juice, the little chambers, the jewel-like seeds tucked inside. And maybe that is part of its lesson. Some nourishment requires patience. Pomegranates contain antioxidants, including compounds that have been studied for blood vessel and heart support. Their deep red color is not random. In many fruits, color is a clue that plant compounds are present. After 60, when circulation, inflammation, and heart health become daily concerns, a fruit like this deserves attention. But the modern world does not like foods that make us work. So we choose easier fruit, sweeter drinks, faster snacks. The pomegranate sits there, almost stubborn, saying, "Open me slowly." Sprinkle the seeds on yogurt, add them to salad, eat them with a spoon and let the tartness wake up your mouth. It is a fruit that looks like treasure, because in many ways it is. The ninth food is honey, the golden food of comfort. In the book of 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 27, Jonathan tastes honey, and his eyes brighten. Proverbs chapter 24, verse 13 says, "Eat honey, my son, for it is good." Honey is one of the most famous foods in Scripture. The Promised Land is described again and again as a land flowing with milk and honey. That phrase is not just about sweetness. It is about abundance, provision, a place where the earth gives back. Honey has been used traditionally to soothe the throat and sweeten food long before refined sugar filled the modern pantry. It contains small amounts of antioxidants and plant compounds, depending on its source. But honey also teaches restraint. It is good, but it is still sweet. Proverbs itself warns not to eat too much honey. That is ancient wisdom with modern relevance. For someone after 60, Honey can be a better choice than processed syrups when used lightly. A small spoon in warm tea, a drizzle over plain yogurt, a little with figs or oats. Not a flood, a touch. The problem is not sweetness itself. God made sweetness. The problem is when sweetness loses wisdom. Honey says, "Receive comfort, but do not be ruled by appetite." And that is a word many of us still need. The 10th food is fish, the shoreline meal of Jesus. In the Gospel of John, chapter 21, verse 9, after the resurrection, the disciples come to shore and see a fire of coals there, with fish laid on it, and bread. That scene is quiet, almost tender. No palace, no banquet hall. Just morning light, tired fishermen, the smell of smoke, bread, and fish on the shore. Jesus did not only teach with words, sometimes he fed people. Fish was a practical food in the world of the Bible, especially around Galilee. It was protein from the water, simple and direct. Today, fish is valued for lean protein and, in fatty fish, omega-3 fats that are often connected with heart and brain support. After 60, those two areas matter deeply. Heart strength, memory, inflammation, energy. The body begins asking for food that serves more than appetite. But modern meals often replace simple fish with heavily fried, processed, salty versions that do not carry the same benefit. So keep it simple. Grilled fish, baked fish, sardines with whole grain bread, salmon with herbs and olive oil, a squeeze of lemon. Nothing complicated. The risen Christ served fish by a fire. That alone should make us slow down and ask what kind of food belongs on a table of restoration. The 11th food is goat milk and curds, the shepherd's nourishment. In the book of Genesis, chapter 18, verse 8, Abraham serves curds and milk, along with the calf he had prepared, to his visitors. In the book of Judges, chapter 5, verse 25, Jael gives milk and curds in a lordly bowl. Milk and curds belong to the pastoral world of Scripture. Shepherds, tents, flocks, morning chores, hands that knew the rhythm of animals and land. For many ancient families, dairy was a way to preserve nourishment. Fresh milk, soured milk, curds, cheese-like foods. These were not supermarket products. They were living foods from a living household. For older adults, dairy can provide protein and calcium, both important for maintaining strength and bone health. Fermented dairy, depending on the kind, may also support the gut. Of course, not everyone tolerates dairy well. Some people need to avoid it, and that is where wisdom and medical guidance matter. But the biblical picture is still meaningful. God's provision often came through daily rhythms, not sudden miracles. Milk in the morning, curds in a bowl, a flock cared for over time. Modern food has become so disconnected from the source that many people forget nourishment once had a face, a field, a shepherd, and a season. Maybe that is why it felt more sacred. The 12th food is cucumbers and melons, the water-rich foods of the wilderness. In the book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 5, the Israelites remember the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic they ate in Egypt. Now, that chapter is complicated. Their memory of food becomes tangled with complaint. They are looking backward while God is leading them forward. But the foods named are still real foods. Cucumbers and melons are full of water, cool, crisp, refreshing. The kind of food that makes sense in a hot climate where thirst can wear a person down. After 60, hydration becomes more important than many people realize. Some older adults do not feel thirst as strongly. Others drink less because they do not want to get up at night. But the body still needs fluid. Water-rich foods can help. Cucumber slices with a little salt and vinegar. Melon in the morning. A simple salad with herbs. Nothing fancy. The modern world sells detox drinks in bright bottles, but Scripture quietly names foods that already cool and refresh. Of course, cucumbers and melons are not magic, but they remind us that sometimes support for the body begins with something as basic as water held inside a fruit. God designed food with mercy built into it. Even the crisp bite of cucumber can feel like relief. The 13th food is almonds, the gift hidden in a shell. In the book of Genesis, chapter 43, verse 11, Jacob tells his sons to take the best products of the land down as a gift, including almonds. And in the book of Numbers, chapter 17, Aaron's rod buds, blossoms, and produces almonds. That is a remarkable image. A dead staff suddenly bearing life. Buds, blossoms, fruit. The almond tree is one of the earliest trees to bloom in the land, which made it a sign of watchfulness and awakening. And nutritionally, almonds deserve their ancient respect. They bring vitamin E, magnesium, healthy fats, fiber, and plant protein. After 60, these nutrients can support heart health, skin, muscles, and steady energy. But almonds were forgotten because they became casual. A snack in a plastic bag. Something tossed on a desk. Something eaten without thought. Scripture gives them more dignity than that. They were a gift worthy of rulers. A sign of life appearing where no one expected it. Eat a small handful slowly. Pair them with dates or figs. Add them to oatmeal. Use almond butter without too much sugar. Do not rush them. A nut is small, yes, but small does not mean weak. Sometimes life begins again in a shell. The 14th food is pistachios, the green jewel of Canaan. In the book of Genesis, chapter 43, verse 11, pistachios are named with almonds, honey, spices, and other gifts sent down to Egypt. That alone tells us they were valued. Pistachios were not filler food. They were special enough to travel as a gift in a time of famine and fear. Picture them wrapped carefully, carried with hope, sent ahead to soften the heart of a powerful man. There is something beautiful about that. A small green nut carried in a desperate season. Pistachios provide healthy fats, plant protein, fiber, and minerals. They also contain antioxidants, including compounds connected with eye health, which becomes especially meaningful as people age. But, like almonds, pistachios have been reduced to snack food. Something eaten during a game. Something poured into a bowl and forgotten. Yet Scripture places them among the best products of the land. That should make us pay attention. Choose pistachios that are not buried in too much salt. Eat them slowly. Let the shell slow your hand. That is one hidden benefit. The food itself teaches pace. After 60, eating slowly is not a small thing. It helps the body listen. And sometimes, wisdom is as simple as cracking one shell at a time. The 15th food is garlic, the forgotten fire of Egypt. In the book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 5, garlic is one of the foods the Israelites remember from Egypt. Again, the spiritual setting is a warning. They are complaining. They are romanticizing the past. But garlic itself is powerful food. Sharp, hot, pungent. The kind of smell that enters a kitchen and refuses to be ignored. Ancient people valued garlic for strength and flavor. Today, garlic is studied for sulfur compounds that may support circulation, immune function, and heart health as part of a healthy diet. After 60, that matters because food needs to work harder. Every bite should bring something to the body, if it can. Garlic was forgotten partly because it is not polite. It stays on the breath. It fills the room. It does not behave like a delicate garnish. But maybe that is exactly why it belongs here. Some healing foods are not elegant. They are strong. They are earthy. They wake up the blood and the appetite. Crush garlic and let it rest for a few minutes before cooking. Add it to beans, lentils, fish, greens, and soups. a little fire in the pan, a little warmth in the body, a reminder that God's garden did not always smell like flowers. Sometimes it smelled like garlic. The 16th food is onions and leeks, the humble roots of strength. In the book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 5, onions and leeks are remembered along with cucumbers, melons, and garlic. They are ordinary foods. That is the whole point. Onions sit at the bottom of so many meals that people stop noticing them. They disappear into soups, stews, sauces, and roasted vegetables. Leeks are gentler, sweeter, almost buttery when cooked slowly. But underneath that humility, these foods carry real value. Onions contain prebiotic fibers that may help feed beneficial gut bacteria. They also contain plant compounds, such as quercetin. Leeks, as part of the same family, bring their own gentle support for digestion and flavor without heaviness. After 60, the gut becomes central. If digestion is poor, everything feels harder. Energy drops. Meals become uncomfortable. The body speaks in small complaints. Onions and leeks were forgotten because they are too cheap to impress anyone. No one wants to sell you an expensive bottle when a real onion is sitting in the basket. But Scripture is not embarrassed by humble food. Slice onions into lentils. Cook leeks into soup. Roast them until they turn sweet at the edges. They are roots of strength, hidden under layers, just like many faithful people who quietly hold families together. The 17th food is mint, the small leaf with a sharp memory. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 23, Jesus mentions mint, dill, and cumin while rebuking religious leaders for tithing small herbs, but neglecting justice, mercy, and faithfulness. That verse is not praising the herbs as the main point. Jesus is correcting the heart. But notice this: mint was common enough, valued enough, and present enough in daily life that it was part of religious practice. Mint is a small leaf with a clean, cooling fragrance. Crush it between your fingers and it wakes up the room. Traditionally, mint has been used after meals to soothe the stomach and freshen the breath. Its aromatic oils can feel cooling and calming, especially after heavier food. For older adults who struggle with bloating or discomfort after meals, simple herbs like mint may be useful as part of a gentle routine. Mint was forgotten because it became decoration, a leaf on dessert, a garnish on a plate. But herbs were not created merely to look pretty. They carry aroma, bitterness, freshness, memory. Steep mint in hot water after dinner. Add it to cucumber. Chop it into yogurt with a little garlic and salt. It is small, yes, but Scripture often reminds us not to despise small things. The 18th food is cumin, the seed of order and warmth. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 28, verses 25 to 27, cumin is mentioned in a passage about planting and threshing each seed in its proper way. Jesus also mentions cumin in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 23. Cumin is a seed of warmth. You know it the moment it touches a hot pan. Earthy, nutty, a little smoky. The smell goes straight into the appetite. In the ancient world, spices were not just flavor. They helped make simple food satisfying. Lentils, beans, bread, vegetables, fish, all of them become more inviting when the right seed is added at the right time. Cumin has been traditionally used to support digestion, and it contains antioxidant compounds. It is not a miracle cure, but it is part of that old kitchen wisdom where flavor and function often meet. The Isaiah passage gives a beautiful lesson. The farmer knows that each seed must be handled differently. Dill is not threshed like wheat. Cumin is not crushed like heavy grain. Wisdom pays attention. After 60, that lesson matters. The body changes. What worked at 40 may not work at 70. You learn to listen, adjust, and season life carefully. A little cumin in lentils can make a plain bowl feel alive. Warm food, warm spice, warm mercy. The 19th food is mustard seed, the tiny seed of greatness. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, verse 31, Jesus compares the kingdom of heaven to a mustard seed, small when it is sown, yet growing into something much larger. Most people remember the parable. Fewer remember that mustard was also part of real food culture. A tiny seed, sharp, pungent, easy to overlook until it opens its flavor. Mustard seeds contain compounds called glucosinolates, found in the same broad plant family as other pungent vegetables. These compounds are studied for their role in the body's natural protective systems. Mustard can also bring heat and flavor without needing heavy sauces. After 60, flavor matters more than people admit. When food becomes bland, people stop enjoying healthy meals. Then they reach for salt, sugar, and processed sauces. Mustard seed brings brightness. It wakes up greens. It lifts fish. It cuts through rich food. And spiritually, it carries one of the most encouraging pictures in Scripture. Small does not mean useless. Hidden does not mean powerless. A seed does not need to look impressive to be alive. Maybe you feel small in this season, less noticed, less strong, less fast than before. But the kingdom has always known what to do with small beginnings. Let the mustard seed preach while it seasons. The 20th food is olive oil, the oil of blessing and healing. Here we are, the final food. And really, it is more than food. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 8, olive oil is named among the blessings of the good land. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 34, the Good Samaritan pours oil and wine on the wounded man. In the book of James, chapter 5, verse 14, oil is connected with prayer and care for the sick. Oil in Scripture touches everything: food, lamps, kings, priests, wounds, prayer, hospitality, blessing. It is poured. It shines. It softens. It marks what is set apart. And among all the foods on this list, olive oil may be one of the strongest bridges between biblical wisdom and modern nutrition. Extra virgin olive oil contains monounsaturated fats and polyphenols. It is central to the Mediterranean way of eating, which has been widely studied for heart health, healthy aging, and inflammation support. After 60, this matters deeply. The heart needs care. The brain needs care. The joints need care. The cells of the body need the kind of fats that support, not sabotage. But not all oils are equal. Cheap, refined, overheated, or fake oils do not carry the same dignity as true extra virgin olive oil. That is the tragedy. The oil Scripture treated as treasure became just another bottle on the shelf. Use it with respect. Drizzle it over vegetables. Pour it on beans. Use it with fish. Dip whole grain bread into it with herbs. Let it replace some of the heavier fats that leave the body tired. And when you taste that peppery finish in the back of your throat, remember this: the old world knew. The Bible knew. Oil was never just oil. It was a sign that God provides enough to bless, restore, and strengthen. Now step back and look at a table we have built. Lentils, barley, beans, bread, figs, dates, grapes, pomegranates, honey, fish, milk and curds, cucumbers and melons, almonds, pistachios, garlic, onions and leeks, mint, cumin, mustard seed, olive oil. None of them require a celebrity label. None of them were invented last year by someone selling a monthly subscription. They are old foods, field foods, tree foods, garden foods, shoreline foods, foods that carried people through famine, labor, travel, worship, celebration, and age. And maybe that is the deeper message. After 60, the body is not asking you to punish it. It is asking you to listen, to simplify, to return, to eat food that remembers the earth, to choose meals that support the heart, calm the gut, steady the energy, and bring gratitude back to the table. No food on this list replaces medical care. No single ingredient fixes a lifetime overnight. But a wise table can become part of a healing life. Small choices, repeated daily. A bowl of lentils, a piece of whole grain bread, a few figs, a handful of almonds, fish on the fire, olive oil poured with care. This is not about fear. It is about stewardship. Your body has carried you through years of work, love, grief, responsibility, and prayer. It deserves tenderness. It deserves better than processed noise. It deserves food with roots. So tell me in the comments, which of these Bible foods did your parents or grandparents eat? Which one do you still keep in your kitchen? And which one will you bring back to your table this week? I read those stories, and they matter, because sometimes the wisdom of Scripture is kept alive through ordinary people cooking ordinary meals with faith. If this video encouraged you, subscribe and ring the bell, because we will keep uncovering the ancient foods, herbs, and habits that remind us God has never forgotten how to nourish His people. May your table be simple. May your body be strengthened. May your heart be grateful. And may every meal remind you that even in later years, God can still bring sweetness from dry ground, strength from humble bowls, and oil of blessing for the road ahead.